Based on the real-life story of Lee Israel, former best-selling writer, her career is dried up. She can't even get her agent to be interested in her new biography of Fanny Bryce. As she said, I cannot sell a new biography of Fanny Bryce. It is not sexy. While she's researching her subject, Lee stumbles upon some letters, and she's got bills to pay, and she has an ailing cat to cure. The cat appears to be the only thing in the world that loves Lee. She needs money, so she decides that she's going to try selling some letters. First she sells a personal letter, then she starts to sell the Fanny Bryce letters. And the letters are fine. They're authentic, but they're bland. Until it strikes her that she could add a spicy postscript to make the letters a little bit more zingy. And suddenly their retail value will rocket. And the next thing, she's forging Noel Coward's signature and writing missives from Dorothy Parker, one of which is the thing which ends, can you ever forgive me? Until then, Dorothy Parker, can you ever forgive me? And she's suddenly discovered that by doing this, she can make saleable, forged artifacts.
I thought this one line here was particularly clever, don't you think?
It's wonderful. I love his writing. And Dorothy Parker as well. Caustic wit, you know?
Caustic wit is my religion.
I can't carry it off. You certainly can.
Doesn't help too much in the relationship department.
I'm sure that's not true. Okay, should we settle up?
Yeah.
I know. Cash. This has my number, well, the number of the store. If you're ever in the neighborhood and, want to get a drink or coffee sometime.
Sounds good. I'd like that.
So that's Melissa McCarthy as Lee Israel. Melissa McCarthy has been nominated, as has Richard E. Grant, and the screenplay has also been nominated. Screenplay, which is co-written by Nicole Holofcener, who, as Richard E. Grant said last week, was originally dead. You have just smacked your funny bone very badly on the desk, haven't you? Are you all right?
This is my kneecap, but as long as you can talk for the next 20 minutes, that's fine.
Who was originally earmarked to direct the film with Julianne Moore in the lead. When that fell down, she moved on. In came Mariel Heller, who I think has done actually a really terrific job. Richard E. Grant, as he was saying last week, was a kind of last-minute signing. And
yeah, because Chris O'Dowd was...
Chris O'Dowd originally, yeah. And the interesting thing is that, as with so many of these projects, the last-minute kind of shenanigans of changing around the cast, you're then left with something you think, I can't imagine it with anybody else. I can't imagine how it would have worked with anybody else. Because actually, Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant are perfectly cast. What happens is that Richard E. Grant plays this new acquaintance, Jack, who she meets in a bar, who sort of attaches himself to her. He's kind of disreputable and he appears to be sort of vaguely homeless. You're not sure. He's got a rebellious streak to him. He likes a drink. He likes a cigarette. And as she's selling the letters, she starts to attract the attention of the authorities, and she realizes that she needs somebody else to do them. So she asks Jack whether he will do it. And actually, Jack turns out to be a rather accomplished con man. He goes into it and says, "Oh, I found this in my grandmother's artifacts. I wonder whether you think it's worth anything." And the heart of the film, in a way, is about their unlikely friendship. I mean, again, that's sort of at the heart of Green Book, and we're saying very much that the charm of that film is to do with the performances. It's to do with Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali creating a spark, and there is absolutely that spark here between Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant. Now, the interesting thing is that when we were talking last week, you raised the thing about, is there any relationship between the character that Richard E. Grant plays here, Jack, and the character of Withnail from Withnail and I, which is really the thing that started his career. And he said, and he's quite right, that actually in many ways, although there are some similarities, I mean, the obvious similarity being that, they're both slightly louche, they're both unreliable, they both take a drink and a cigarette, both of which, incidentally, of course, Richard E. Grant himself doesn't, completely teetotaler, never smoked. But actually, the characters are very different because Withnail is emotionally unguarded and, completely out there, and actually spends his whole life trying to land a role that he never gets. In the case of Jack, he's much more He's like he's playing a role all the time. And I said this, I think it's like watching an actor playing somebody playing a role. So there's a couple of levels to that performance, which I think really gives the performance depth. What Richard E. Grant is doing is he's playing somebody who is playing somebody. You get the sense that bravado, that front, is a sort of defense mechanism, because actually underneath it, he's uncertain, he's anxious, he's worried. And I did get that from the performance. From Melissa McCarthy's point of view, there have been a couple of reviews that said her performance is a revelation. Well, it's only a revelation if you forget the fact that she did do, quite a few years in dramatic theatre before she became well known as a comedian. And if you look back at roles like, in fact, when St. Vincent happened, the reason that she landed that role in St. Vincent was because, Bill Murray was saying, well, she has a grounding in dramatic theatre. And even in movies like Tammy, she's always been bringing something more to the role than just the comic shtick. There's no question that she can do scene-stealing comic shtick absolutely brilliantly, and she's really funny, but she's always had more to the characters than that. And so I don't think it's not so much this is a revelation. What it is it's a confirmation of something that you already knew. What she manages to do here is to take a character who is obstreperous and difficult and has burned every bridge that she has, and is a fraudster, and is somebody who, in a actually I think really well-observed subplot, almost falls into a friendship with somebody who really admires her, but on a fundamental level, she's still conning. She's actually, there's a relationship, she starts talking to the woman in the bookshop, as you heard in the clip.
Yeah.
And actually, it's the whole relationship is based on a lie, because what she's trying to do is to pay the rent. And the other thing I think, which is really nice, there's a running gag about Nora Ephron, about her impersonating Nora Ephron on the phone in order to get her agent to take her calls. And there's a thing at the end that says Nora Ephron got a cease and desist letter sent to her saying, stop impersonating. And I did get the sense that Nora Ephron would have loved this, that she actually would have really enjoyed the film. I really liked it. And I was surprised by how much I did, because again, the general feeling had been that it's, the performances are everything. But actually, I think the film is better than that. I think it's a very well-made, well-constructed, well-played, bittersweet comedic drama, a drama with comedy elements in it that has at its heart not just that relationship between two misfits, but also an irony. The irony being that it is about somebody who has buried their voice behind the voices of other people. At one point, her agent says to her, no one knows who you are, because you write about other people. You've buried your voice. And she says, well, yeah, it's because I'm a good writer. But the irony of the story is that she somehow comes to find her own voice through the process of actually imitating the voices of other people. So I like that irony, and I like the thing about their central friendship. There's one line in it which I can't repeat on the radio, but when he's standing at the door and he calls her something and she says, yeah, you too. And it's a really affectionate use of an obscenity, which I think is kind of, in a way, kind of talismanic of the things that are right about the film.